Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be painting some watercolor popsicles using Crayola markers. I also have some free coloring sheets for you if you want to check out the link below in the description box. And while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on future ideas. Let's get started. For today's watercolor project, I went ahead and already drew out the shapes that we're going to be painting. These popsicles are from the free coloring sheets that you can find on my website, and that link will be in the description box below along with all of the supplies that we used today. I also wanted to show you the watercolor paper I'm using today. I'm using Strathmore watercolor paper, but this one is special because on the back it's actually a postcard. So once I've painted these fun popsicles on the front, I'm going to send this postcard to someone for just a fun summer surprise in the mail. So if you don't want to purchase the postcards, you can use whatever watercolor paper you have on hand. Now what we're going to do to start is we're going to begin with this popsicle over on the right, and then we're going to work our way to the left and use a different technique for each one. So with this one, I am going to use my kneaded eraser and just lightly erase my pencil lines. You want to just barely be able to see these before you begin painting. Because watercolor is so light, if you don't erase your pencil marks first, you might still be able to see them underneath your paint. And it's very difficult to go back once you painted and erase them. And you could also run into ruining your paint if you wait until after you've painted to erase your pencil marks. So always erase pencil marks first, and then get started. We're going to use our plastic paint palette. I have a laminated piece of paper here, but you could use a Tupperware lid or any other plastic surface that you don't mind coloring on. I'll grab a yellow marker, and I'm just going to scribble on my palette. And this is what's going to turn our markers into paint. Also going to scribble out some orange. For this first popsicle, we're going to use sort of a tie-dye effect. So you want it to be really saturated with water, which is why I stopped and did the colors first, because if I waited to do the colors after I got this wet, this would already be dry. So we're going to go over that shape, get it nice and wet. I'm not going to do the popsicle stick yet because I don't want any of these colors leaking into that little brown stick we're going to paint at the end. So for now, just cover the shape of your popsicle with water. And anywhere there is water, that is where your paint is going to flow. So if there's anywhere you don't want paint, just don't get it wet. Get our brush wet one more time. I'm going to swirl it in the yellow on our palette. And then we're going to dab that onto our popsicle. And you'll see when you do that in the water, your colors are going to burst and flow across the surface. And that's the effect we're going for. That's kind of that tie-dye look that's really unique to watercolor and makes for really fun organic paintings. I'm going to clean off my brush. Dip it in a little water again. This time we're going to swirl it in the orange. And then we're going to dab that into any of the white spaces left. And that's going to burst across the white and blend with the yellow. You want to make sure that you start with yellow first because that's the lighter color, and it will be harder to see if you do it after getting your paintbrush and water dirty with the orange. So start with your lighter color first, whether you do yellow and orange or a different combination. And then I'm just going to use my brush and carefully blend my colors into any empty spots. Paint is drying a bit, so I'm going to get my brush wet to make it a little easier to blend that. And there we go. Our first popsicle is just about finished. We're going to let that dry while we do our other ones, and then we'll come back at the end and do the little stick at the bottom. Just get the colors around the edge right there. Alright, for our next popsicle, I am going to lightly erase the lines before I begin. And this one we're just going to do one color. So choose your favorite color from your set of markers and use it for your popsicle. I tend to like cool colors, blues, purples, sometimes green. But I'm trying to think of a color that would make for a fun popsicle flavor. Cherry, strawberry, maybe grape, I guess if you did purple. I'm also going to go ahead and erase this one while we're here too, because we're going to work on these simultaneously. For our middle popsicle, we'll be doing 2 different layers of paint. So we're going to have to paint the first one, wait for it to dry, and then come back and do the second layer. So we can work on this third popsicle while our middle one is drying on the base layer. Make sure you get all those pencil marks. Really good. Okay. So first we're going to do our paint. I think I'm going to go with this really fun pink color. I was talking about those strawberry flavors. So swirl the pink all over your palette. You want a lot of paint. We're going to start with just water again. Paint the water all over this popsicle shape. Again, just do the shape of the popsicle. Don't go down into the sticks. We're saving those for last. Just like when you eat a popsicle, you don't want to start with the stick, you want to start at the top. Now that that's good and wet, I'm going to go into my pink, swirl my brush around, and cover this. You can dab it if you want, or you can push the paint around, it's up to you. If you do little dabs, you'll end up with darker areas and lighter areas. If you push the paint around with your brush, you'll have more of an even coating all over your popsicle. They're not as fun to paint, but my daughter loves Otter Pops, the little popsicles that come in the plastic sleeve. They're definitely tasty, but I always remember like cutting my lips on the plastic when I was a kid. Those sharp edges. Alright, we've got this whole popsicle painted a nice light shade of pink. We don't need it to be any darker than this. And we're going to let that dry. So while that's drying, I'm going to set aside my large brush. We're going to use our smaller brush for this next popsicle. And this time we're not going to start with water. We're actually going to go straight to our colors. Start with red, since we're making this one a rainbow pop. And I'm going to scribble in to the top of this popsicle. Don't go too far down. We got to fit, what is it, 7 colors? Do some orange, leave a little bit of space in between your colors. That little white gap right there will give us room for blending them together. Red, orange, yellow, green. I guess it's 6 colors. Did I say 6 before or 7? Can't remember. Green, blue, and finally purple at the very bottom. There we go. That looks pretty fun like it is, but we want it to look more like a popsicle. So we're going to take our small brush, dip it into water, and then we're going to use tiny circles. I talk about blending with tiny circles in all my other videos. And we're going to do that same technique here to blend this rainbow together. Curve up around the top of your popsicle to get that rounded top. Swirl the red to soften it, and then keep swirling down to the orange and just swirl right in between the orange and the red. We're just catching the top of the orange, bringing it up into the red. Wash off your brush before you go too far into the orange, and then swirl the orange. In all of my other rainbow painting videos, I used Tombow dual brush pens, which are awesome and I love them. They make for great watercolors, but they're a little bit on the pricey side. So doing this video with Crayolas, I wanted to show you that it is not expensive to make beautiful art. You can do it very inexpensively, and most people who have kids have Crayolas lying around the house. I picked up this pack of markers for just a couple bucks at Target, and they're super versatile. You can just use them obviously on their own as markers to color coloring sheets, or you can get a little bit more unique with it and use them as paint as well. And keep swirling all the way down. It's really starting to look like Popsicle now. Rainbow popsicles always remind me of my younger sister, because when we were a kid, we went on vacation to Disney World one year, and there was a particular rainbow popsicle she loved to get at all of the popsicle stands anytime we found them, and that was her go-to snack the entire trip. So anytime we saw those rainbow popsicles, we were sure to get her one. Theme parks, I prefer ice cream. Mickey ice cream bars, or frozen bananas and chocolate. Anything with chocolate basically, which is usually ice cream based. And blue is a difficult color to blend. It always is, even in watercolor paints, other markers. Something about blue pigment, it is so strong. So we're going to swirl a lot of the purple up into that blue. Make sure to curve the bottom of your purple for your popsicle shape. And if these colors aren't dark enough for you, you can always come back. Once this is totally dry, you can come back again and put a little bit more paint on top. So keep swirling that. That blue does not want to budge. All right, I'm gonna clean off my brush, and then I'm gonna go just along the edge. See if I can't smooth that out so it's not quite so lumpy in between each of the colors. Got lots of little lumps and bumps. Smooth that out as best we can, and I think we've got it. So this popsicle in the middle now is nice and dry. I'm gonna clean off my brush, and I'm gonna pick up more of our pink paint. And what we're going to do with this is you should still have some lines in the middle where there would be a little bit of a shadow. And we're going to fill in those shadow areas just to add a little bit of depth and dimension to these popsicles. Just go straight down. And then if you want to soften the edges, do those little circles again. This popsicle style, I think some people call it twin pops, and it's fun because it's really two popsicles in one, because it's got the two sticks on the bottom. So if you wanted to, you could break it in half and share with a friend. Popsicles are always more fun with a friend. Starting to run out of pink paint there, so I'm going to grab my marker and just recharge my palette. Grab a bit more paint. There we go. Go right down the middle. And now we've got that nice shaded area on our popsicles. So now, before we go down and do our popsicle sticks, I am going to try and add a little bit more purple to the bottom of our rainbow popsicle. So swirl my marker there. Get my small brush wet, and then swirl away again, trying to blend that more into the blue. Darken the bottom of this popsicle there. These two colors are just so rich, and they both got blue pigment in them. It's very stubborn. Doesn't really want to move or blend much. So that might be the best we can do. I'm going to clean off my brush, and then we're going to grab our brown. Grab our brown, swirl it on the palette, and you need very, very little of this paint, especially if you want that nice light color for your popsicle sticks. So get just a little bit of water on your brush, tiny bit of paint. You could even pick up some paint and then swirl it on your palette before taking it to your paper. And then we're going to start on our farthest popsicle because it should be 100% dry. And we're going to paint our little popsicle stick. There's one down. Grab just a little bit more paint. Paint the first one on our twin pop. A little bit more paint. Paint the next one. Grab just a little bit more. And then paint down here. I'm being really careful. Try not pick up any of that purple paint that I just painted. Round off the bottom. Go up to the top. And there we go. We have our 3 summer treats. Now you could leave your popsicles as is, or if you wanted to, you could grab some blue paint or even yellow and paint some sky around there. Some nice bright colors, some fun clouds, birds, whatever. Or you could level up your painting and add some highlights and shadow to our popsicle, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to take this white gel pen. You could also use white paint if you have it. And I'm just going to add a little highlight to the left side of each popsicle. So I'm going to draw a curve from the top down and then an extra little curve right there. This is as if the light is coming from the left side downward. So each popsicle will have the highlight on the same side, the left side. Curve it here. Make sure not to go into any of that dark shadow we painted. Do a little highlight over here too. The top side of that one. And then we're going to do a highlight on our rainbow popsicle. Looks the best on that one because our colors are so saturated because we started with marker on paper and not on the palette first. These colors are much softer because we started with them on the palette and then transferred them to the wet surface. And if you made any mistakes down here, you want your popsicle sticks to maybe be a little more crisp on the edge, you could also outline them with the white to hide any of those little imperfections. Or just leave it as is because that gives it a lot of handmade character as well. It's all up to you. So now that we have our highlights on the top with the light coming down from the left, we can take our gray marker and you can add a little bit more shadow. We're going to swirl that on our palette over here. Get our small brush wet. Swirl it in the gray, and then along this side of the popsicle, we'll just paint some gray along the edge and the bottom. It's really hard to see here, I know. It's a very soft effect, so I'm going to go over it one more time. And this is just going to make it stand out from the paper a bit. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. This is just another way to add some dimension to your painting and sort of level up. Add some detail. You could also add some lettering to the bottom if you wanted to add a special message if you are going to send this to someone. Or if you just wanted to hang it on your wall, you could add a funny summer saying. Add some shadows to the bottom of this one. And then finally on our rainbow pop, all the way from the top to the bottom. Don't forget your little stick, go around the bottom of that guy. Add a couple little more touches here and there. And there we go. You have some beautiful watercolor popsicles that you painted with markers you already had on hand. Thanks again for joining me today. It's always fun to learn together. I hope that while you're here, you check out one of these 2 projects and subscribe so you don't miss out on future ideas. Happy painting!